when you got started with Full Story, what was the opening that you saw in the market?
Well, I will actually take a bit of a step back. And the founding of story of FullStory actually predates to 2004, where the three eventual founders of FullStory, eventual, were part of a little three-person startup that one of the co-founders of FullStory, a guy named Bruce Johnson, had started. And in a twist of good luck, that company hit Google's radar, and Google came in and acquired that little entity back in 2004. Bruce and Joel, brilliant computer scientists, went on to basically found and lead Google's engineering office of Atlanta and grow that to a bunch of very, very smart computer scientists focused on the problem of building rich web applications, kind of moving from Web 1.0 to 2.0. I went and fought in the email wars, as I like to say, in another SaaS company for a little while. But let's call it 6 or 7 years, Bruce and Joel and I would get together and say, let's start another company. And so we eventually quit our day jobs and did, really more out of friendship and the desire to build something new than having this specific goal of building FullStory in mind. And so right as we sort of got that band back together, a few other of Bruce and Joel's colleagues from that Google office came along for the ride, and we started working on a tool that had nothing to do with FullStory. Seemed like a great idea at the time. It was sort of a SaaS tool for marketers. We launched it, and it was going okay. We were getting customers. They were doing things in the product. It wasn't a rocket ship by any stretch, but we kept asking ourselves, what are our customers doing in that product? And it, like all other small technology companies at the time, we repurposed Google Analytics into our product to try to understand what people were doing. And that didn't really scratch the itch. So then we went and bought a product analytics tool, and we purposed that into our tool. And we were quickly disappointed at the data that we were able to get out of that tool for this reason. The event instrumentation paradigm of having to know ahead of time what moments were important, we just weren't very good at that. We call it the foresight fallacy. We thought that button was important, and we thought that button was important. Turns out there were 3 other things on the page that were way more important, and we never instrumented those things. So, and there was just this long, slow cycle. Anyway, Bruce and Joel and the rest of that team were brilliant, and they sort of saw this opportunity, I think primed by working at Google, where Google indexes the entire internet. Like every word on every page is sitting in an active index. And for business data, we had to know ahead of time what was important. So we started experimenting for our own tooling with something that was now today called auto capture. Probably talk more about auto capture. The idea of one script that just ingests all of the data so we could have full retroactive analytics on that. And then we started to look at that problem of, but what else are our customers doing in that tool? Session replay fell out of that thinking. We showed some of our internal tooling to some friends at other SaaS companies, and they were like, that is a much better product than your first. And so we pivoted and launched FullStory in 2014. And so, soundbite answer for you, it wasn't that we saw this huge market opportunity. It was we experienced something that the market was not currently delivering on. And we saw an opportunity to just serve ourselves better. It turns out it was a problem a lot of people had and still have.
Back then, who was the customer segment that you were going after, and what channels worked to land those first customers?
Yeah, well, we started by selling to people that were a lot like ourselves. We're based in Atlanta. There was a small but growing contingent of early stage software as a service companies. And so we went and talked to them and we're like, hey, do you want to understand when you're building a product, who's using those features? When somebody files a ticket, do you want to be able to debug that ticket faster? And so we sold to those guys right out of the gate and validated product market fit with them. when we had our, shortly after that, we raised a seed round. We had our tech crunch / product hunt moment. And our first positioning was actually to customer support people. And so I think if you dig back into the archives of the TechCrunch article, it was talking about faster customer support through session replay, which really wasn't kind of our purpose, but the position worked well. What we found out shortly after that is that we'd talk to customer support VPs and they would say, "This is awesome. Can you go talk to my product and engineering teams? Because they need to install this thing so I can use it." And then we'd have to run the sales pitch to them. And they would stop us and say, "Oh my gosh, this is the product that we've always wanted. This is much better than having to go do, a UX study and sit behind the mirrored wall, or get a product analytics tool where we got to go instrument stuff." And so then we repositioned to product teams. And I think that was really the catalyst to drive our product-led growth, because we were a product-led company and still are in large part for, I would say, first 3 to 4 years of the company's life.
In the beginning, was it more of an outbound motion to land customers, or did you already start focusing on inbound?
I mean, it was very much our thesis was that we wanted customers to be able to come to FullStory.com, try the product, get instant value of it, and then swipe a credit card and buy it. And the bet was, and it proved to be right, if you could deliver value, they would go tell their friends, and that would, we call this the flywheel. It would lead to a flywheel effect of more inbound leads. Now, we're not going to just sit around eating popcorn waiting for inbound leads. And so we did all the things. Very early in the company's life, we call this theme within FullStory Bionics, a bionic process, bringing life at scale through an outbound cadence that was very, very personalized, but we did it at scale. We actually had a third-party group that would go to Target's website. They would use a Chrome extension to record a session of their visit that would get packaged up into an email with a play button on it. And the subject line of the email was magic goggles. We thought that would be intriguing. So we would send that to VPs of product at any company whose site was visited, and they'd get this outbound email that said, "Wouldn't you love to be able to see what your users are actually doing within your website and get the retroactive analytics?" And then they would hit play. It would pop them over to FullStory, and they'd get to see a high fidelity session of the visit of our SDR. And that just pulled them like gravity into the FullStory process. And we still do a bit of that today, and it works fairly well.
After you hit your first 1 million in revenue, what changed in your product strategy, the target customer segment, go to market?
Memories are pretty foggy. So, I'm going to hand wave around this and say, from a milestone standpoint, we try not to really over focus on $1 million, $10 million, $100 million. We've hit those and they're awesome, but they're not as strong an inflection point. I think what we looked to do was sort of always think about, where are we seeing growth? And then are we in a place where we can take on a new chapter of growth? Probably correlating around that $1 million ARR mark. We knew at that point we had product market fit. Rewind earlier in the discussion, we had a product that did not have product market fit. So everything was a grind, but we sort of had this flywheel of $100 million. If you zoomed in on the chart enough, you could see the inflection building. And so one of the things that we always believed was going to be true was that we needed to start to move upstream to bigger and bigger companies. Most of our early companies, small SaaS companies, small e-commerce companies. And so we started to layer in a sales organization. We did not have sales in the early days until probably, let's call it 1 million to 5 million. But even then, we were focused on that commercial mid-market segment, trying to sell bigger and bigger deals.
In those early days, let's say in the 1 to 5 million story. Like you said, you came to the market because you were kind of solving your own problem. It was like it was a pain, um, and a lot of other companies noticed the same problem or opportunity in the market at the same time. So a bunch
Mhm.
of companies were started around those years.
Yes.
Now, when you hit around that 5 million mark, did you pay attention to the competitive landscape? Did that influence your strategy?
At 5 million, I would say no. I would, in my recount of events, people may disagree with this. It really was a wide open market, in the 2014 to 2018 timeframe, hand waving a little bit. There had not been, and still, I would argue pretty strongly, not auto capture plus session replay. And even session replay was fairly new onto the scene. And, you know, we prided ourselves on delivering the best, fastest, product led approach to that. And so while there were a few out there, we certainly were not running into competitive cycles. We were still winning the greenfield of, oh my gosh, I didn't know this was a thing. It was it was only later when we started to move more aggressively into the enterprise and the category started to merge did we really start to see those much more competitive sort of cycles. I will note, there was a Gen 1 category of players that probably were constructed in maybe even the early 2000 era. It was foundationally a different paradigm of technology on how they were recreating sessions. And as the web moved from Web 1.0, where it was click, wait, new page, to Web 2.0, where everything lived in the browser, those pieces of technology just started to break down. And so we were one of the first area of DOM capture session replay.
Tell me about that moment where you realized that, hey, we need to go like way up market, like we're going to go to enterprise. Like, what was happening? What were the signals that you were seeing? And then when you said, okay, let's go for it, what changed in the organization?
There was no moment. It was sort of a slow boil. And if I'm honest, one of the biggest regrets I have with Full Story is that we did not push more aggressively into the enterprise earlier in the company's life. Pro tip to founders: in SaaS, by and large, you want to get to the enterprise. Look, we were a team of, with myself set aside, ex Google engineers. We're product led people. The best products will win. Like, we believed that in our soul. And so we felt like the product should stand on its own and people should be able to try it and find it. And I really think we drank a lot of Kool-Aid, that people would show up and swipe a credit card for $1 million on the website. And that is just not the reality. So the truth is, we're a venture backed company. And so we have Google Ventures and Kleiner Perkins, and we would sit around the board. And I have a very smart set of seasoned investors that see these patterns all the time. And they'd sit around the boardroom and they're like, yeah, you should move to the enterprise. We'd kind of be like, no, we don't need to move to the enterprise. People are going to swipe for $1 million. And so there was just sort of that gentle nudging. And then we'd run an experiment. We hired some salespeople, and then we'd win some really big business, and we could serve the business. And we didn't sell our soul as part of that. We were still the same company. And a lot of those fears, I think, that product led companies have, engineering, product centric, product led companies have, is that salespeople are somehow going to just completely wreck the culture and you're not going to be able to control what you're building. And we always try to be pretty methodical about that. And so we've scaled very nicely into the enterprise.
And so if a SaaS company is at that decision point, like, hey, like, should we go after the enterprise? What does that mean in practice? Like, do you hire a bunch of SDRs who start like sending cold emails, or what does that look like?
Uh, you know, I think it's, look, going to the enterprise isn't just it's not a switch. It should start with, in my opinion, one of the founders or the CEO. Like the CEO needs to be the best storyteller, the best salesperson out there. And so it started with me going on site and doing some sales demos and understanding what's resonating in the room and what's not working and how do you close a deal. And then, like all good things that happen when you're an early stage startup, is you test, validate, and iterate and just keep on keeping on. And so we saw success in the enterprise. Great, let's teach other people how to tell that story. And on it went.
What is the product strategy today, and how has it evolved? So you were all, clickstream and auto capture. How has that changed over the recent years?
It's a great call out. So in the early days of FullStory, I'm being ungraceful when I say this. It hurts my heart to say it. We were a session replay company that was kind of a tool. It was a little bit of a tool. You could use it.
Your point
Um,
solution.
yeah, yes. Yeah, okay, I'll admit it. But look, it provided a ton of value and it was sort of the anchor place for the category. What we've seen, though, is that once you land in an organization, the power of FullStory moves to multiple organizations really quickly. And we've watched how people are using our product enough to understand that it really is the data that they care about. And so auto capture really is the wedge in the war going forward now, as people think more about the modern data stack and their data lake. I'll be really simple. The answers to problems of digital experience are resident in data. If you do not have the data, you cannot get at the answers. FullStory is, I'll stand by this claim, we are the only company that has the deepest record of every digital visit in a privacy-friendly way. It's taken us a while to figure out how to take that really rich, structured, indexed set of data per visit and then unlock value beyond hit play and see what your users are doing into retroactive analytics, proactive insight, feed your data lake type valuable propositions that our customers are paying us for. And so, auto capture is the future of digital analytics. And there are not many, in my opinion, there's only FullStory that does it well, and that is resonating right now.
So in the story that you tell, to prospective customers in the market,
Yep.
and if you think about differentiation and competitors out there,
Yeah.
is in your opinion, or the way you look at it, is it like a product based differentiation, like it's an objectively better product because etc., or is there also like a completely distinct story that you tell, like branding, marketing wise, that nobody else is telling?
It's never just one thing. It starts with the product, though. If you look at evolution of categories, there has to be a step function invention in order for it to really unlock step function value, right? Otherwise, it's just a prettier UI on an old piece of technology. And there are companies that are successful with a prettier UI on old technology. I would argue that the category of product analytics, by and large, is just a reboot of Google Analytics and Omniture with a prettier UI. There isn't anything, there's no invention there. So, FullStory has an invention. Auto capture, auto structure, auto index is new, and it gets you answers to questions that you have never been able to get answers to before. And so what we do, look, we want an at bat, we want to be in the room. We're going to push really hard to do a proof of value for our customers. And that proof of value is going to let us demonstrate why we're unique and different and more valuable than the old guard, the not step function, where they're still instrumenting events behind the scenes. They're still throwing bodies at the prod. And when our customers see it, we win without question. So then you have to say, all right, well, how do we make sure we're in the room? And that's where our marketing strategy, and we're constantly evolving our marketing strategy. The magic word for us is flywheel. And so we've got uh, you know, many thousands of customers, and within those customers, many thousands of users. And so we make sure those users are having great experiences with FullStory, that they feel like they're part of the club and that they get why we're better and unique and different. And then we want, if you think about a category as it evolves, those people are going to change jobs. Probably every 3 years, they're going to change jobs. And we want to make sure when they go from company A to company B, they remember FullStory and they bring us with them. And so that's why being a product-led company in the early days and not turning your back on it, mind you. We still have a growth team and a commercial team and an enterprise team, and we serve and sell all of those customers. And we put equal emphasis on all of those customers.
So there's great product, they have great experience, they tell the friend that they bring you with them to their next job. What else are you doing in the marketing and the brand arena to to grow, to outcompete others?
Yeah. This theme of auto capture comes back because it's something that for a while we didn't need to emphasize on it. But to your point, there are lots of companies out there that are telling a similar story to FullStory. And at a web page level, you can do that easily. They can all look the same from a distance. And so what we're doing is making sure that customers and the market and the analysts understand that no, there's a foundational difference when it comes to data capture and structure that has a meaningfully different impact. So if you go to FullStory.com right now, you'll start to see much more language on auto capture. There is the now definitive guide to auto capture that is something that we make sure that our customers understand. When you're looking at other vendors, are you getting all the data? Are you really able to share this information throughout the organization and hitting those value points? Because if you don't have the data, you can't solve the problems.
There is a common wisdom in the tech space, in the B2B tech space, that every innovation is a transient advantage. Like sooner or later, the competitors will come and copy you and sell it cheaper, and everything gets commoditized over
That's right.
time. So, what is your point of view on that? Like competing on innovation versus competing on other things.
Yeah, it's a great point, and of course it's true-ish. My co-founder Bruce used to love to say, and I think he was parroting somebody else, start with a lead and then run faster. And so we were one of the first in the category doing what we do. It is important to understand, though, that we're not just sitting around not innovating, not constantly improving. And so what we're doing is thinking about what are the things that matter most to our customers that cannot be easily copied. So we can start with our lead and move faster. So we invest heavily in R&D because, again, the product is the foundation. People buy from software as a service companies because they don't want to build the stuff themselves. So we're going to be the best R&D company we can be to build these things. Privacy is a great example. We invest more than any other competitor in the space when it comes to making sure that only good information crosses the wire. We want to make sure that is sacred and important. And it's something, this is kind of weird. Most of the category just doesn't talk about it because they don't really want to surface that, yeah, if you're not doing session replay right, bad information can come across. We've burned our hand on the stove before. And I'll tell you, because we invest more, the different technical approaches we take to making sure that no data ever crosses the wire. We have workflows and our machine learning that's looking for any sort of bad pattern. We lead the way on that. And so when you have a clone show up, and we'll talk about clones in a second, you just have to make sure that you're arming your team with let us tell you what we've learned in the past and what's important for you. Because in a new and evolving category, your customers don't always know. And the clones certainly aren't going to tell them. Can I talk about clones for a second? Because
Talk about clones.
I think it's interesting. It's one of the things that nobody really told me was going to happen. And I think it is a newer phenomenon. You expect competitors. There's no question about competitors, right? different technologies unlock similar thinking across the world. People start solving the same problems. You have a noble set of competitors. The thing that caught me off guard is the clones. There's some company in friggin' Boston, and they showed up and literally copied and pasted so much of FullStory. If you went into their UI and looked underneath the hood, you'd see our CSS selectors. Like, they just copied it. And it's just so gross to me. And then increasingly, I'd say there's one every 2 or 3 months that show up. They have their product hunt moment, or like, okay, there's another one. What we know, and we need to make sure our customers understand, is that the things that we've had to learn along the way when it comes to performance on the site, you can't slow the site down. Privacy, it's a really hard problem to solve. Indexing, COGS, that is stuff that takes years to develop the right way. And so a clone that copies and pastes your terms of service and your value proposition and your CSS selector may look very much like a FullStory, but it is not a FullStory in the ways that really matter for you as a customer. And so other founders, I'm just telling you now, be ready for the clones. You're gonna be incensed. I want to throw computers at times when one of these folks shows up. But it's the world we live in today.
Continuing on the same theme, you've worked in marketing, you've founded some other companies, and now you've picked up a lot of lessons running FullStory. So, if you had to pass on more advice to fellow B2B SaaS founders,
Yeah, yeah.
what maybe 3 to whatever number of pieces of advice, what advice would you give?
In no particular order, I would say in that earliest stage, if you're the founder trying to find product market fit, and I'll tell you that is a hard phase. You need to listen to that voice in your head and get good at listening to that voice in your head. I mentioned earlier, we started with a product that wasn't the right product. It wasn't FullStory. And you read all these articles about how people are going to tell you that your idea is not right and they're going to be haters. It's hard to know when to listen to those people. But in the middle of the night, if your voice is saying over and over again, what do we need to build to make this product really work for our customers? What's the one thing? That means you probably don't have product market fit. You know that. You've got to learn how to listen to those voices and push through them. I wasted a year and a half kind of trying to talk myself into thinking that it was a good idea because I had pride involved and there were people along for the ride. And that's a really hard one. I've said the word a couple of times. We got some really good advice when we were pitching that first product. We went and met with a really smart investor. And the first product was basically a fresh coat of paint on an old piece of technology. And he looked at us and was like, guys, what's the invention here? Why is this new and better? And we were hand waving, oh, it's more usable and it's a little bit more shareable. It wasn't enough. It wasn't an invention. So you have to make sure, I believe, that you're building something that is a step function better than whatever else is out there. And in that step function, you're able to really demonstrate value better and above what currently exists today. That's important. Otherwise, you're just another clone, really. And you don't want to be a clone. Nobody wants to be a clone. I think I said earlier, move to the enterprise faster than you think you need to. And I'll tell you why. As our category has evolved, we serve the enterprise super well. It's much, much easier to win a greenfield opportunity than it is to displace something, even if it's inferior. And so if you've got a competitor, and the way categories evolve, there's always sort of not always, but the very small business company, the mid-market starting company, and the enterprise player. Like Oracle is enterprise, MailChimp is VSB. And you can do well in all of those. But if you're in that mid space, you're going to get to the enterprise sooner or later. And displacement is hard. Greenfield is easy, even if you're significantly better. So we run opportunities with companies that love full story, but they're just like, I don't know, we're not this year, we're just not sure we're going to change this year. We'll wait till that contract is up. And so get there faster.